Thank you. Thank you very much and welcome. I'm Father Mitch Pacwa. Welcome to EWTN Live, where we bring you guests from all over the world. And our guest tonight is committed to helping people fully integrate their Catholic faith into every aspect of their lives. And through his position as the director of the Catholic Information Center in Washington, D.C., he and many others are reaching out, particularly to young professionals working in our nation's capital, to offer spiritual, intellectual, professional programs to help them integrate and lead a good life of Catholic faith. So please welcome Father Charles Trullols. Father Charles.
Thank you very much.
How are you?
Thank you, Father Mitch. Very well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Good to have you. Now, I'm going to bet that your mother didn't call you Charles.
No, she didn't call me Charles. She called me Carlos.
Carlos, where are you from originally?
I'm from Spain, from Barcelona. I grew up there. I went to college there. I studied architecture before becoming a priest. And then I went to Rome afterwards to study theology and canon law. Yes. And afterwards I became a priest. And it's and all throughout this period, my mother continues to call me Carlos.
Carlos,
yes.
Of course.
But when I came to the U.S., my name was changed
to Charles.
To Charles.
Okay, good.
So,
yeah, I didn't think. I heard you speak earlier, and Charles just didn't seem to be quite right.
But right?
Yeah. Well, good to have you here,
yes,
Father.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This information center, Catholic Information Center. We used to have Father McCloskey on quite a bit. He's been ill,
yes.
And very seriously so we keep him in our prayers. But I know that he was doing wonderful work there, and that center, Catholic Information Center, has been around for quite a number of years. Give us a little background of how that center got started and what you're doing there now.
Absolutely. It started in 1957, many years ago, right?
And not that many, but go ahead.
And then
I remember 57
yes.
well.
So it started as a lending library, a small lending library near the White House with a small chapel. And it has been developed throughout the years into what we have now, a 6,000 square feet place, also near 2 blocks away from the White House, and it has a bookstore, and we have a chapel. We offer the sacraments, daily mass, confessions, adoration, and we give spiritual direction. I give spiritual direction, and other priests also help me with that. And we have also programs, as you were saying before, in which we try to enrich the intellectual, the spiritual life of all those people working in Washington, D.C. And Father C. John McCloskey was one of my predecessors.
Yes.
He was at the Catholic Information Center, the director, for maybe approximately 10 years, and he did wonderful things. He was a key element, for instance, in the conversion of Bernard Nathanson.
Yeah, a lot of folks don't remember Bernard Nathanson,
yes.
but he was one of the very key people in influencing a pro-abortion attitude in the late 60s and in especially in the 70s. He himself did something over 60,000 abortions, which is extraordinary,
yes.
amount of babies that were destroyed. And then he very famously did a video to teach doctors how to do abortions.
Yes.
And he saw, and I've watched that video, and in it the baby is inside the womb, and as the knife enters, it starts to punch at the knife and kick. It's trying to protect himself. And then he gets murdered. That turned him around, and Father McCloskey, because he was an atheist, he didn't have any faith at all.
Yes.
But Father McCloskey was very influenced
yes.
in becoming a Catholic.
In becoming Catholic, in converting, right? And in being a pro-life activist afterwards, right?
Yes.
And I remember I think Father C. John or someone telling me that Bernard Nathanson afterwards, a very, moving anecdote when he went to make a retreat after becoming Catholic. And then they didn't know that who he was, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, they were going to close the chapel, and Bernard Nathanson said, no, I want to stay, I was to stay here, but we are going to lock, sir. And then he said, well, I need to make up for so much that I want to stay the whole night in adoration,
Wow.
So that was one of, with Father C. John McCloskey, who also was influential in the coming into the Catholic Church of other people like the current chief economic advisor for the president, Larry Kudlow,
Mm-hmm.
or Kudlow,
Kudlow,
and many others, right?
So and being there in a place like Washington, D.C., where there are so many very influential people who sometimes keep their faith or religious ideas out of the realm of their discussion, the center helps them to bring God back into their lives and bring their lives back to God.
Absolutely.
Would you mind if we took a quick look at a video?
Absolutely.
About the Catholic Information Center, and then we'll get more of your lived experience.
Absolutely.
So let's take a look at this short clip that we have about the Catholic Information Center.
Washington, D.C. is full of sound bites, cheap conversation, divides, division, and noise. It's a city in need of hope, virtue, and authentic leadership. As Catholics, we know that this hope is rooted in Jesus Christ and in the wealth of church teaching. But how do you bring it to the table? How do you share the gospel in this city? It starts with us. With a new generation of men and women emboldened by the gospel. Men and women who integrate their faith into their personal, professional, and civic lives. At the CIC, our mission is to make the Catholic Church alive in the hearts and minds of the men and women who live and work here in the nation's capital. To support a growing community of Catholic professionals through spiritual direction and the sacraments, through our lecture series, and through our fellowship opportunities. And to engage emerging leaders in the public and private sectors through our Leonine Forum, providing them with the tools they need when grappling with the hot-button issues of our day. And our mission doesn't stop here. Together, we will bring Catholic principles into public conversation at law firms, think tanks, startups, and on Capitol Hill. Washington, D.C. is at the intersection of faith, policy, and culture. And what we do here doesn't only affect our city, but the entire nation. Join us at the CIC.
So this is the way you present the Catholic Information Center and the way that you're trying to influence Washington. How do things, work out on a day-to-day basis? What kind of things do you all do?
Well, normally, we have the bookstore that opens from the outside. It's just a bookstore, right? Mm-hmm. And we have a great selection of philosophical, theological, spiritual books. And many people come in just trying to buy a book, or they are curious about the Catholic Information Center, what this is, because maybe they are looking for something. Mm-hmm. And then they come in and they discover that there is also a chapel with a tabernacle. By the way, it is the closest tabernacle to the White House. So it's something that I'm very proud of saying, right? Because we always are.
It's important that our Lord's
presence
is right there, and that He's present in the Blessed Sacrament, that close to so many, not just the president and his family, but all the people that work there at the White House.
Absolutely. In fact, I was reading how Pope Francis says that a good Christian is someone who prays a lot for those who govern, right, mm-hmm. for any administration. So we really pray at that tabernacle and for everyone working for our country. Anyway, and then some people come and they also see a priest and they want to talk to him, or they discover the possibility of going to confession, or ask for spiritual direction, or they just browse a little bit through the bookstore and they buy maybe a rosary, and there are people who in this way come closer to our Lord. I remember when I first arrived in Washington a year and a half ago, someone introduced to me who now is a very pro-life filmmaker and activist. His name is Jason Jones, and he told me when he was a teenager, right, unfortunately he had a bad experience, and anyway, his girlfriend had an abortion, and he was an atheist at that moment. And when he came to Washington, D.C., he told me that coming into the Catholic Information Center and starting browsing, that helped him to change his heart and his mind. And through, along the years, he knows a great Catholic and also who defends Christians in the Middle East. He's one of his projects. Anyway, so this is one of the, sometimes people bring other people to the Catholic Information Center, and I remember this also. I met who is now the ambassador for promotion of religious liberty around the world, Ambassador Brownback, who was the governor of Kansas, and before that, senator, right. And he was introduced to Father C.J. McCloskey as well, and through this contact, and he started to realize that his heart was moving towards the Catholic faith, and he became a Catholic. And the Catholic Information Center has so much influenced so many people who at the same time influence for the good our country.
Yes, a lot of folks may not know that there is something of an ambassador at large. He's not assigned to a particular country.
Exactly.
But he or she are assigned to address issues of religious persecution. And it doesn't matter who is being persecuted. For instance, the Muslims being persecuted in Burma. What do they call it now? It used to be Burma. A lot of these countries changed, but also Christians in the Middle East and other minority religious groups around the country. Yeah, Myanmar. This is that people are experiencing religious persecution, oftentimes mixed with ethnic and other issues, and so this is something that he or she goes and deals with. And it's good to have that Catholic background on care for those who are in great need.
Yeah. And I also realized of the impact of the Catholic Information Center in the city, in Washington, D.C., when at the Catholic prayer breakfast, where Vice President, this was last year, Vice President Pence went to speak, and he, after his address to all of us, in which he said, I'm very happy to be among you today. And he also said, my mother is also very happy that I'm here with all of you.
He was raised Catholic.
He raised Catholic.
And left the church some years ago, but his mother is still Catholic.
Yes, and so my predecessor, Father Arnie Penula, who was a legend in Washington, D.C., and he just passed away a few months ago. And after the Vice President's speech, he went to the podium because it was his turn to give the final blessing. Mm-hmm. And he got a standing ovation of all the thousands of people. I don't know how many people were in that huge ballroom. And that showed me all the good and the appreciation that the city and Catholics have for the Catholic Information Center.
Cool. And it's, in most of the time, it's relatively small groups and individuals. It's not necessarily mass meetings that is the way the center reaches out to people.
Absolutely.
Different people come in, and I wouldn't be surprised that some of their guardian angels and the Holy Spirit are inspiring them to come precisely when they need to be there. And our Lord uses those individuals, like working with Father Arnie.
Father Arnie.
We have another clip too about him.
Oh, okay.
Well, let's take a quick look at that.
We have to ask the hard question, why is this so? I mean, I hear this as a priest so often. Why the cross? Why must we suffer? Why is there no love in this life without the cross? What makes suffering indispensable?
I mean, even as his physical strength was starting to fade him, he had this sense of mission that he never abandoned until his last day.
When he was very ill at the end, I used to visit him from time to time, and I used to ask if there's anything I could bring him, and he would say, just bring me your sins. He wanted to just be a priest that was taking care of us even towards the end, as he was really in bad shape himself.
When he first went home on hospice care, I wanted to go see him, and I wanted to bring some of our kids to see him, and I said, would you hear my confession? And he turned to the children and he said, not with them here. I thought, of course not. You know, he was always a priest. He was just a wonderful priest.
Those around him knew that he was not just suffering, but he was sacrificing. And that's a great priestly example. It's a great fatherly example and a great inspiration.
All right. So Father Arnie's passed away, I understand.
Passed away, and I'm trying to, continue his legacy at the Catholic Information Center. And one of his legacies is his love to try to reach out to young professionals. There are so many in Washington, D.C. And for that, he promoted, with Mitch Pacwa, who is also part of the Catholic Information Center, a program that is called the Leonine Forum.
What do you mean by Leonine?
Leonine, it's because of Leo XIII. Leo XIII, who wrote the first encyclical of the Catholic, the Catholic social teaching body of the Church, yes, more or less, right? Yes. In the 19th century, the Rerum Novarum. So we, or they, Father Arnie and Mitch, named the program after him, after Leo XIII.
I see.
And the goal is to teach those professionals the social teaching of the Church. Once a month, they come, we have a group of 40 people, 40 young professionals between 25 and 35. We bring like amazing speakers for each topic, and they learn because they want to, or we want them to be more knowledgeable of their faith, and also to be able to apply those teachings to their professional life, as we were saying before, to integrate their faith into their social, civic, and professional life.
This social teaching that Pope Leo began, in some ways he didn't begin it out of nothing.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you ever noticed this about Pope Leo, but he gave the last of the encyclicals and papal decrees that condemned slavery. Beginning with Pope Eugene IV in 1436, the popes had constantly spoken against the slave trade.
Yes.
And he gave the last encyclical on it to get the last Christian country that had slavery, namely Brazil, then the Empire of Brazil. And he convinced them to let all the slaves go free. And then once the slavery issue was resolved, he immediately, that same year, moved to teaching about labor for those who are not slaves, but are doing this hard labor, yes, in the factories and the new situation. And it's a wonderful thing that y'all are teaching these same principles of social righteousness and justice to young people.
Yeah, and also it's very, people are kind of coming and they want to apply to the program. Unfortunately, we don't have space for everyone, and we have almost 3 times applications that we can, accept. So it's a very great program, and also we offer them, part of the program is to offer them spiritual life, right? I offer Mass, and afterwards we transformed the bookstore into kind of it's like a restaurant. It's not a restaurant, but we cater dinner, cafe, and then they can talk among themselves and know themselves, right? So, and then we have now 5 years of this program, and we have many alumni. We just organized our first pilgrimage to the Holy Land with 40 alumni and current fellows of the program. And I know, Father Mitch, that you are an expert in the Holy Land.
I've been there a few times. I've taken 61 groups over the years.
Yes,
so
and these experiences transform the lives of them, my life as well, right?
Yeah.
That was my first time in the Holy Land.
Yeah.
So
that's really cool that you're doing all that. You know, and you just do this in Washington. Is Washington the only place?
we are expanding the program.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, we just
To where?
We just started in New York. This year we have our first Leonine program in Manhattan.
That's a very important place because that's
Absolutely.
culturally and economically a very key city within the whole world.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So you're in New York. That's
Yeah,
good.
and also we try to focus, I mean, to shape the program to the different needs and different people, right? Washington is more like public policy, right? And common good, and also part of the program in New York. But New York is more focused on financial aspects that are also important for justice and the common good and other elements, human dignity, right? So this is a great program that started, but my predecessor was a key element in founding.
And I think that the fact that you're bringing this kind of thought is something, especially as a Spaniard, because it was Spanish Jesuits and Dominicans who began the very first theorizing that became capitalism. Yeah. That was back in the 17th century, 100 years before Adam Smith ever wrote. Yeah. And this is something that the church needs to integrate, because that's what it sounds like you're doing. You're integrating political, policy, economics with the church's social teaching and giving that to so many young people.
That's right, that's right. And another element that we have at the Catholic Information Center, because we want to serve, to minister not just to Washington, D.C., but we are opening to the whole country by putting on our website at cicdc.org our podcast, all the speakers that we have are on the website. So people like to listen to these great events. And also, the Catholic Information Center must be a stop for all those people who come to Washington, D.C. I wish I knew about the Catholic Information Center when I was a teenager and I came with my parents, right, to visit Washington, D.C. I didn't know anything about the Catholic Information Center. Sure. But so many people out there don't know of its existence, and it would be great if they should know about this, because there are so many resources, and maybe they can check the website before coming to the city and plan their trip, and maybe they can stop or attend one of our events.
Especially, during this coming summer months, when school is out, a lot of families do go to Washington because there's so much to see. In art, the National Museum, the Natural Museum, and of course Smithsonian and the various government issues. Absolutely. But also to see Catholic University and to come to the Catholic Information Center to see the kind of things that are going on there. Exactly. Are you ready for a lot of tourists if they did show up?
We are completely ready.
Oh, good. I like that. That's good.
And we are also promoting actively for more people to come to adoration at the Catholic Information Center. We think that if more people, when they are looking around and going to museums, they were to come to the Catholic Information Center to pray a little bit, and also to pray for our administration or any administration and those people who work in the city, that would be a very worthwhile time.
You know, I don't know if you know this part of American history, but when we had that little tiff with Great Britain back in 1776, before we even chose having a president and a Congress, one of the banners, one of the battle cries, all of the Americans was, "We have no king but Jesus." And they used to say that, when they, that we don't want King George. I'm sure he's fine for England, but we're different. So we want no king. We have no king but Jesus. And when we go to a place like the White House, it's good to also visit that one king that we do have and spend time at the Blessed Sacrament Chapel with Jesus our King.
Absolutely. So many people from all stands of life come to the CIC. I mean, we have influential people, famous people, and also we have homeless who come to the CIC to pray. And
homeless people?
Homeless people. One of them moving, when I celebrate Mass there, sometimes I'm thinking of one who come to Mass and then he receives the Blessed Sacrament with such reverence that wow, this is an example for all of us.
Sure.
And I remember of this other woman who is also homeless, who comes to Mass, and in a special feast day on St. Joseph, she came dressed in a very special way, and I was thinking, that's something.
Well, see, maybe if you get them on your staff to teach everybody who visits how to come to Mass reverently, then they won't need to be homeless anymore.
Absolutely.
That might be a good thing. It's so you have a lot of these different folks, and do you find many people, not only the young folks, but some of the older folks are coming as well, older politicians and business people?
They come. Okay. Those who have been in the city longer, they know more about the CIC, and they also, when you are there, you see coming in and out these people who have a great appreciation for the Catholic Information Center, and there are so many people who tell me, I cannot come to the CIC because there are so many great books that I would buy everything here. Right. So. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, have them work out a nice payment plan. We want to let you know you can go to find out more about it by going to CICDC. A lot of C's in there. CICDC.org. That's their website. You can also call them 202-783-2062. Find out more about the Catholic Information Center, and who knows, maybe get some ideas about starting some Catholic Information Centers in our other cities and help people to know more about the faith and our morals. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. We want to get some of your comments or questions, as well as those of our audience, so please stay with us. Welcome back. And we are going to be asking Father Trullols some questions now and see what we have. You ready for that?
Absolutely.
Giddy up. Start off with Lynn. Lynn, where are you calling from?
North Carolina.
Wonderful. And what's your question?
Well, it's more of a contribution, I hope.
Okay.
when I lived in Alexandria, Virginia, I used to go to the CIC at noon every day for Mass.
Wow.
And I sponsored a little Iraqi Kurdish girl who was a Muslim, a very devout Muslim. And we wanted to go down and see some books. She wanted to read more about the church. So we went to the CIC, and I introduced her to Father C. John, who had been in his little office there by the bookstore. And he came out and was so welcoming with her that when 9/11 came, she wanted to go to a Catholic church. So I took her to the shrine for Mass. And, of course, everybody wanted to go to church that night.
Right.
Spontaneously.
Right.
And the moral of the story is, when I got her, her name was Muhammad. And when she was received into the church, she adopted the name Mary Bernadette as her confirmation name. And became a Catholic.
Oh, that's good. You still keep contact with her?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, nice, nice. Does she find that it still brings her joy?
I don't ask a lot of questions.
Okay.
I just observe. But it was Father McCloskey and the atmosphere at the CIC that turned her head.
Yeah, cool.
I make a visit because the chapel there is so beautiful.
Well, thank you, Lynn. Appreciate that. Do you find that there are other folks from other religions, not only Muslim, but other religions too? I know Bernard Nathanson was an atheist, but from a Jewish background of sorts, but not practicing. Do you find any other religions come in there and become inquisitive?
Yeah, there are people who come from a Jewish tradition, or or Protestants. There are many people who come in from other religions, and yes, or non-Catholics as well. And I try to do what Father C. John McCloskey did, right? To be very welcoming myself, and all my staff who work there are also really good and being welcoming also, no matter the background of the person. And this is part of showing our love for Christ and our love and respect for everyone.
Yeah, and that would be part of hospitality.
Absolutely.
Just being welcoming to folks that come in. And it's a nice place. If they have questions or interest in a book, they can do that without, you're not going to come to their house after that, are you?
Yeah, no, and the Catholic Information Center is very easy to go in. I mean, it's really, it's not threatening. It's really, really nice, and we are trying now to improve also the.
No big statues of knights with swords and pikes and axes.
No, not that.
Good, that's good. Young man, where are you from?
From Raleigh, North Carolina.
Welcome, welcome. And what is your question?
I was going to ask, for people who come to the Catholic Information Center, what is one of the highest factors that helps people to use the information that they get to go and evangelize and spread it to other people?
Okay.
Normally,
thank you.
Thank you very much. So the events that we have help. They are there are many ideas out there, and that our speakers promote and deliver in all kinds of topics. And this information is used by so many people afterwards when they go out into their lives, to their works, to their professions, right? To try to bring Christ as well with their lives. So I think that on the one hand we have the events, on the other hand we have what people buy, the books, right? That nourish their souls, and also what you were, Father Mitch, talking about before, these one-on-one conversations of spiritual direction also help people to understand better their faith and the possibilities that they have afterwards to share their faith with others.
Okay. Let's take a call. Matt, where are you calling from?
Milton, Georgia.
Milton, Georgia. Well, welcome. And what is your question?
Well, as you try to help with the cultural aspects of Catholicism, how do you get good Catholics who are principled to not only just run for office, but also to win against the Saul Alinsky rules for radicals tactics that permeate politics today?
All right, so how do we get good folks to run for politics and then deal with some of the tactics that, by Saul Alinsky tactics, this refers to, Saul Alinsky was very much committed to the idea that the end justifies the means. So when you have a goal, do whatever you have to do to get that goal done, even if it doesn't seem quite moral by other standards. So the end, your goal, justifies anything that you do to get it done. And this is problematic. So how do we get some of the good people to want to run for office and then win?
Well, first of all, they have to know their faith well, right? Sometimes people are ignorant and they don't know what is right, what is wrong. So the Catholic Information Center provides many opportunities to know our faith and also what the Church teaches in what is in morals, in ethics, right? But secondly, at the same time, it's true that we cannot compromise our faith in to win or to get some things. I mean, as you were saying, the end does not justify the means, right?
Right.
So
you have to use moral means, moral methods, as well as have moral goals. Absolutely. It's not one or the other, it's both moral goals and moral means.
But there are many temptations out there to not to follow your faith, not to follow Christ, with the excuse of achieving a goal. And for that, I think that other than knowing what you should do, you have to have a strong prayer life. And this is another aspect that people sometimes forget. It's not just about knowing, it's about being with Christ to be able to overcome those situations in which you have that the world presents to you, in which you have to choose. They tell you they have to choose between doing this or between not following your faith, right, and doing something that is not right, right? Mm-hmm. In politics, especially because there are so many aspects that are tricky. So this is why you have to be a professional politician and know what is what are the limits of your choices.
Yeah, I think we've seen politicians at national and state levels who may have gone in with a lot of good intentions, people who are very committed Christians, Catholic and Protestant alike, and yet the temptations that come along, you have people that want to build up your ego, and they'll present people for sexual favors, financial favors, trips and journeys and all kinds of things to entice you away from your goals and your values. And when they're saying how great you are, you're just great. And look, don't worry about it. Everybody comes to this party, and this is where we got to do business. And these girls you don't have to mess around with them, but they're there. Go ahead. There's all kinds of that stuff that goes on, plus the monetary stuff. And this is where, as you say, having our faith very much alive, not just as a theory, but a commitment to the person of Jesus Christ that affects the way we decide, will I go along with that vice? Will I give in to my selfishness? Or am I going to keep seeking our Lord? That's tough.
That's tough, but at the same time, with some spiritual direction, professionals always have coaches, right? Professional.
Do you provide that kind of coaching to individuals at the Catholic Information Center?
Absolutely. So this is one of the aspects of the Catholic Information Center, just to help all those professionals, also politicians, right, to do the right thing. And we know when they learn their principles, and at the same time they see that they are not alone and they get support.
I think one other aspect too, just about how do you get them into office, it's also important that you have to be willing to put up with attacks from the press. They are partisan on both sides. They're conservative and liberal partisans, Democrat and Republican partisans in the press who are not reporters at all. They are pushing agendas. And they will go after somebody any way they can. They'll be constantly looking. And you have to have a real character strength and an ability to spot what these wise guys are up to, so that you be more of a wise person than they are. This is that takes a lot of skill, a lot of counsel.
Skill, counsel, and as you say, but at the same time, I would say that we cannot be scared of going into politics for those who have the ability and who have the willing to serve our country in this manner.
Whose families are willing to put up with the terrible things people will say.
Exactly.
Even when you're a good person,
Yep.
they will lie about you.
Yep.
And you have to be ready for that, tragically.
Yes.
Sir, where are you from?
Raleigh, North Carolina.
You with that other young man?
My son.
There you go.
Good
And
evening,
so
Father.
what is your question?
Well, Father, you mentioned earlier you distribute a lot of information, but when people come in, are they looking for specific topics such as church history, spirituality, the sacraments? What seems to be that number one topic they're looking for?
Well, the number one topic, I think, that they want, depending on the person, right? They want a book that helps them in their profession, in their lives. Many people look for what he was saying, church history, or topics that are current topics for our faith right now that are challenged by some other people. So they want to know more about that. Many people also, not many people come in directly for the first time to look for the sacraments because they don't know that the sacraments are offered. But as soon as they come in and they discover the beautiful chapel that we have there, and then they start asking also for questions about what we do there, many people come back for the sacraments precisely. And so it's a combination of topics that have to do with your profession, and also with your of topics about the current, I would say, trends that are out there in the street.
Let's take another caller. We have Esther on the line. Hello, Esther.
Hello.
Hi, where are you calling from?
Goshen, Indiana, which is about 20 miles east of Notre Dame, or 100 miles east of Chicago.
Yeah,
I
right,
think you know where I am.
Yes, I do. And not specifically your house, but I know where Goshen is. So, Esther, what is your comment or question?
Back in 1957, I was a 18-year-old going to marry a Catholic boy, and so I worked in downtown Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I went into the Catholic Information Center, and I didn't see anybody, and I looked around a few minutes, then I got scared and went out. But I did go back in, I did take a class, and I was baptized on July 20, 1957. My husband and I were married in August, and we were married 57 years, 10 months, and 23 days before he died. I'm so thankful to the Catholic Information Center and the Paulist Fathers and Father Lyons that brought me into the church.
So the Paulists were running it back then, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you, after these years, it's over 50 years now, you don't regret it, eh?
Years this summer.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, good. And did anybody chase you when you were in there?
No.
Oh, good.
I was afraid they were going to that first time, so I went out.
Well, good that they didn't chase after you or come waving Bibles or catechisms at you. And it's great that you stayed all these years. You're a blessing to the church, I'm sure.
I remember reading an article about these Redentorist fathers, about their work at the Catholic Information Center back then. And the title of the article was A City Oasis, right? Because it's so pleasant and nice to go in and to discover a whole world, a new world, right? For people who may not know much about the Catholic faith, and the great job that they did at that time as well in trying to bring people closer to Christ.
Cool. Yeah. I have another question. Ma'am, where are you from?
I'm from Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, great. Good. Good to have you here. And what's your question?
So I wanted to know, has anyone come back to you later and said that the Catholic Information Center inspired them in their professional life or to help create policy or something like that?
Thank you. Well, I would say that when I first arrived in Washington, D.C., and I was talking about this friend of mine, by chance, I was introduced to then Governor Brownback, as I was saying before, and he immediately, when he saw me, he said, "Oh, you are Father Charles, the new director of the Catholic Information Center. You know, I love the Catholic Information Center. Thank you, because it has transformed my life." So I don't know the specifics, right? But what I know is that the CIC has transformed, even if we don't know it, but the lives and the hearts of so many people. And I know people have also some converts to the Catholic faith have been giving interviews afterwards, not coming to me directly because I just arrived, but giving interviews about the wonders and how the Catholic Information Center have helped them.
Well, just like Esther, calling from
Esther.
Indiana.
Yes.
And I'm sure there are many, many others, as well as famous ones like Bernard Nathanson. And you can see where, now that Mr. Brombeck, Ambassador Brombeck, is doing something, there's a lot of difficult issues. Our government, like many other governments, is very tempted to manipulate things like foreign aid for our own purposes, our own national purposes, which can be legitimate, but also they can manipulate it for nefarious purposes. And to have someone who is formed in Catholic social thinking and knows how to apply principles of Catholic social thinking to the government, that can make a big difference for the folks. I know we've had policies off and on over the last 25 years. We will give foreign aid if you let us encourage abortion and birth control. And that, this is where, we can be manipulative. Politicians who are well-formed can help us to think through the moral questions at stake.
Yeah, there is an encyclical, Mater and Magistra, that deals precisely with this topic, how richer countries help poorer countries. And it says that you have to be careful because you cannot transform or change by offering this help their cultures, but much less their morals, right? As you were commenting about.
Yeah. Now, you're dealing with a lot of these young professionals who are coming to learn about the faith, about how moral principles and Catholic moral social principles. What do you see as one of their biggest personal struggles? Because you get to talk to individuals. Where do you see them struggling the most at this point in our history?
Well, I would say what you were saying before. Sometimes there are challenges in their professions, right? And they have to make decisions, and sometimes they have to stand up for their principles and their beliefs, and to speak up. That's one of the difficult aspects of our society today, unfortunately, where there is so much pressure from the media and from other elements to not to keep your beliefs and your faith and your principles to yourself. Mm-hmm. So this is one of the elements or aspects that I see in the young professionals, as well as how to make compatible their busy profession with their family life, their spiritual life, because it's not easy. There is a lot of pressure to perform, right? And at the same time, they have to understand that we don't get married to our professions, right? There are other things that are very important in life, and there have to be priorities. So prioritizing your time, your ideas, and your goals is something that also is very current in the people that come to the CIC.
Yeah, I think helping people to see the difference between a vocation. Marriage is a vocation. Mm-hmm. Priesthood is a vocation. Absolutely. Religious life is a vocation. But within a vocation, you have different jobs. So a married man or a married woman can go through a variety of career changes without changing their vocation. Absolutely. And same thing for us priests. I've been a teacher working here at the network, work in parishes, have different tasks that we do, but the vocation is different. And helping to keep the job that we do in balance with and integrated with the vocation that God gives us, this is something that's very important.
Yeah, and it's not enough to want to live this way. You have to learn. You have to learn to do that. Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't come naturally many times, and there are obstacles and difficulties and other people, right, in interacting with you. So this is a very important aspect, yes.
One other thing, too, I like about the center that I think is important. Too often, we stop learning about our faith at an early stage of life, when we're children or adolescents, and we don't keep on learning about it as we get older. And meanwhile, we are learning about many other things, but we let our faith knowledge lag behind. And that's what I think that y'all are working on, is trying to get the faith formation and moral formation up to the same level that you are professionally as well. As you learn your job in college and stuff, you learn your faith and integrate that. And that's extremely important for us. You don't stop learning your Catholic faith at any stage of life. So this is very important. We want to make sure that we let people know how to get a hold of you. There's the Leonine Forum, and you can find it online by going to leonineforum.org, leonineforum.org. Also, something that we're trying to do a lot more cooperation with EWTN and the Catholic Information Center. You can also listen to and watch past events that they hold at the classes and other seminars from the Catholic Information Center by going to their website, cicdc.org, cicdc.org. Well, thank you for the good work you're doing.
Thank you very much.
And if, I'd like to conclude with a blessing. So if you would join me in giving a blessing to our audience, may Almighty God bless you and keep you, cause His face to shine upon you, the Father, the Son, and Holy Spirit. Enjoy this great period. This is our Holy Week. Go to the services on Holy Thursday, the foot washing and the celebration of the First Eucharist. Be there on Good Friday afternoon to pray and honor the cross. And the other service at the Eastern Rite churches. Go in the evening for the Burial of Jesus services. And of course, Holy Saturday night for the Vigil and Easter Sunday. This is our week as Christians. Be there and give praise to our Lord Jesus Christ.
Thank you.